Everyone, how you doing?
Okay, we did the introduction already. So if you have a few minutes, we know this is a busy election day and you're out there volunteering your time. So I'm glad that you'll be able to come in. So the time is you're on now. Thank you.
Yeah, just wanted to say hi to everyone and also give thank you to UA3. And I apologize that my voice is kind of harsh right now. But I really want to thank all the volunteers and everyone that puts this together. As I mentioned during the college admission, you know, these few years, whether it's getting after school help, college admission, just preparing yourself mentally, academically, to take that next leap in life is super important. And I remember when I was in your seat that for other students that are watching, it was these mentors that really guided the path for me, that gave me the best opportunity possible. And that's what Chi, Stanley, Danny, that's what they're doing here. They're making sure that you get all the questions answered, you get all the support. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to support organizations like UA3 to offer this service. So just wanted to stop by, say hi. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to my office. And really good luck and stay focused. This is an important moment in your life, but we all know that you can do it. If you're willing to give up an afternoon to do this, you're willing to take that step to be successful. So hope everyone's having a great day.
Thank you very much, Council Member Christopher Marte. Thank you.
Take care.
I, I see that our speaker is here. And let's take this opportunity to introduce Tyler Margolis, Assistant Director of Binghamton University.
Thank you very much. My apologies for joining just a few moments late. Been busy this time of year, especially with all the early action deadlines that are going. But really happy to speaking to all of you about the very exciting college essay writing process. Uh, my name is Tyler Margolis. I'm the Assistant Director for Undergraduate Admissions at Binghamton University. I've been working in higher education for about 5 years now. So today we are going to really dive into the essay writing process, not only talking about what makes a good college essay, but also talking about why, as admissions counselors, we value the college essay so much. So I'm going to share my screen if I can figure out how to do that.
I-share paano si Penda paano?
Oh, it says sharing is not turned on. I think you need to give me access.
Felix, make him host, please. Or co-host.
Can you guys see that okay?
Yes, we got it. Thank you.
1 second. So you guys see that how to write a better college essay, right?
We saw it.
Perfect. It fits on the screen all right?
Mm, I don't see it right now. Try it one more time.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, that's good.
You can see it?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So today, how to write a better college essay. And as I mentioned, I'm from Binghamton University. This beautiful picture here, that's Binghamton University. Always happy to answer questions about Binghamton as well if you have any. So I mentioned this before, but today we're going to talk about how your college essay is used by the admissions office. What are we looking for? What are some do's and don'ts? What are some strong essay topics? What should you not write about? So we are going to get into all of the nitty-gritty of the essay writing process. Now, some common myths and misconceptions about the essay writing process. Myth number one, the purpose of your essay is to impress the admissions committee. If you haven't done anything noteworthy, you're less likely to be admitted. That is absolutely a myth. When we are reviewing your college essay, we're not looking for you to tell us a story of how you hiked Mount Everest or how you traveled the world. We're really trying to get a better understanding of who you are as a person. Therefore, it doesn't need to be this groundbreaking, earth-shattering story about a life that you haven't lived, right? We are looking for your authentic story when going through your essay review process. In actuality, the purpose of the essay is for the admissions committee to get to know you, not only as a student, but also as a person. We want to get an understanding of your passions, your motivations, and most importantly, we're evaluating for fit. Not academically speaking, but your fit into our overall campus community. Myth number 2, perfect grammar, spelling, sentence structure are essential. A misspelled word could be the reason you're denied. That is a myth. The truth is that a vast majority of admission staff, like myself, did not major in English in college. We do look for repeated and obvious errors, but an obscure error here and there will not be a deciding factor in your application review process. We are focused on the content, your story that you are telling us. So once again, if you have one spelling mistake or one grammatical error in your college essay, do not think your chances of being admitted to college are zero. That is the farthest thing from the case. Now, we are still evaluating your quality of a writer, so you should write a coherent college essay, but we're much more focused on the actual content or structure of that college essay. Myth number 3, using a thesaurus as you edit will make you sound more intelligent and college ready. The answer is false. When you use a thesaurus for word replacement, it almost always backfires. Part of the application review process, more specifically, the essay writing process, is hearing your unique voice. So if you use too many fancy vocabulary words and it doesn't flow with the rest of your essay, we're not fully going to get a better understanding of what your true story is. If you always use a thesaurus to only use very eloquent and elaborate words, your essay might backfire. Use the natural vocabulary that you're using every single day. Now, on to the next topic, which is choosing your topic. Now, some topics you should probably avoid. Certain topics should likely be avoided when your essay. Sports. There's nothing inherently wrong with this topic, but it's massively overdone. It's nearly impossible to write about a new and interesting sports-related essay. Why you want to be a doctor, lawyer, etc. Part of the problem here is the popularity of this essay choice. But the other issue is that many of those who enter pre-med or pre-law change their minds throughout college. So it's not really a metric we use for admissions. It can make sense to write an essay about why you want to be a nurse or engineer or any other major program we offer, but it's a missed opportunity if you're talking exclusively about a professional graduate program that you're applying for. Discovering a widely known problem. Many people write essays about a world issue that they're passionate about, and that's great, but be careful with how you explain it. Implying that other people weren't aware of the same problem can set the wrong tone. But more importantly, implying that you weren't aware of the problem can make you sound uninformed on an issue you're trying to sound passionate about. A common example of this, discovering the huge problem of poverty or hunger only after going on a trip to a developing nation. Or COVID. That's something that we all went through as individuals that lived here on planet Earth, right? These are scenarios that are common, they are not unique, and they're something that everyone went through. Another topic to stay away from, failures that aren't necessarily failures. An example of this would be writing about the time that you got a B in a tough class and calling it a failure. This also can set a bad tone, comes across as humble bragging, or possibly worse. It can create the impression that you don't actually know how to handle failure because you've never experienced one. And two topics that I recommend staying away from are death, disease, and injury, and even potentially maybe a parent's divorce. This isn't actually a bad thing to talk about in your application. More on that in the next slide. But it can be a missed opportunity for an essay. It's important to understand that admissions committees will never admit a student purely because we feel bad for them. Hardship can be helpful context for us to have when evaluating a student's application. But an essay should be used more to show us personal strengths, strong characteristics. And if you're going to write about a hardship in your essay, then you need to make sure there's a significant upswing at the end. If there isn't that significant upswing, then it's better to talk about this in an additional information session. Just to talk a little bit more about that, when writing your college essay, if you are choosing to write about a hardship, we do want to learn about those areas of growth, right? So if you're going to talk about these topics, make sure that you're talking about a positive benefit you've learned from this experience, how you've grown. That's really how we're going to better understand how you're going to grow if you're a member of our Binghamton or campus community. And the last topic that I recommend avoiding is the meta essay. The meta essay is an essay written about the process of writing an essay. It's very hard to write an essay like this without coming across as either angry or bitter. And if you're frustrated about the concept of an application essay or just uninterested, your essay is about how you didn't know what to write about, so you wrote about the brainstorming process. Once again, we're not worrying about anything when you are writing that meta essay writing process. Now, when talking about adversity and hardship, some of the topics to avoid are still things that you want the admissions committee to know in order to evaluate your application in the right context. Sometimes these stories make good essays, but a lot of the time that information is better to share in the additional information section of your college essay. How to choose a good essay topic. When you are going through the essay writing process, you are provided a series of prompts to write about. My biggest piece of advice is conduct a thorough brainstorming session where you're thinking about the different things that you impact your life or things that you have an interest in. Some of those questions that you could think about are, what is an issue in your community or the broader world that you're passionate about? Do you have a unique hobby or interest that motivates you? What's one specific goal that you're achieved or that you're very proud of? Is there an extracurricular activity that you mentioned in your application? And would you like to talk a little bit more about that? Or what excites you the most about the college going experience? Each of these questions provides a little bit more insight into who you are as a person. You're not regurgitating your transcript or your resume. You're providing in-depth answers to who you are, once again, not only as a person, but how you're going to contribute to our campus community. Refining your chosen topic. Once you have a general topic in mind, the more specific you can make your college essay, the better. It's nearly impossible to write about a general topic that we've never seen discussed, but you can tell us a story we've never heard before. For example, if you want to write a college essay about your experience being a counselor at summer camp, great. But you want to make sure your essay is unique enough that we will remember it as your story. Everyone who has ever served as a camp counselor can write about that topic. And most can talk about how they help campers learn valuable lessons. A few might write specifically about their experience helping students with a challenging course, but only you can tell us the specific story about two of your own campers and how you helped them learn to settle their differences. And here's a nice little breakdown. Being a counselor at a summer camp, enjoying helping the campers learn teamwork, teaching your group to tackle the challenge course, getting Dylan and Jackson to work together without fighting for the first time all summer. So that's how you make a very common issue and break it down into a much more personal story. Understanding structure and your own writing style. Here is the traditional essay structure. Now, when using the word traditional, I am talking about the environment that you are writing a college essay, or excuse me, the environment that you're writing an essay in your typical high school environment, maybe an English class or a social studies class. This traditional essay structure works well for assignments and standardized tests like the ACT or SAT. It's very simple and easy to teach, and therefore easy to grade. Traditional essays typically start with a very broad introduction paragraph that explains the overall topic and then narrows down to your specific thesis as the last sentence of your paragraph. Then you have 3 paragraphs to give an example for your general thesis. Then your conclusion restates your thesis and gets broad again for a big picture wrap up. It's fine, it's just not necessarily interesting or engaging. And it doesn't work well for personal statements or college essays. Instead, a better college essay should read like a story. A personal statement or college essay is a story about yourself and your life. Neither your intro nor your conclusion should summarize the content of your essay. Just like how the first and last chapters of a book don't summarize the entire plot. Your intro paragraph should start with the hook that pulls the reader in, and they should need to read the full essay to properly understand the story that you're trying to tell. Now, what exactly is a hook? A hook can be the first sentence or the first paragraph of your essay. The intention of that hook, it's to capture the reader's attention. Hint at content without summarizing the entire purpose of your essay. And it also prevents the reader from skimming. Right? We are very focused on capturing the attention of the reader. In that situation, it's an admissions counselor like myself. A hook is a great way to captivate the attention of the person that is reading your essay. The first example here is affective, right? Terracotta, black raspberry, burnt ochre. Pretty similar at first glance, but each had a slightly different use. It doesn't really make sense, and it makes the reader ask, what? Which encourages us to keep on reading so that we can get an answer to our question. FYI, the topic of this college essay was art. The student liked to draw with colored pencils and listing the names of different colors, all of which were similar red-brown shades, which is what all these different colors are. The second example is effective partially for the same reason. It makes the reader think, what are they talking about? But it's also a visual hook. It's short, and as a standalone sentence, it grabs the reader's attention and pulls them in that way. Example, this topic of this essay was that the applicant's sister used a series of plastic letters and note cards to communicate. If any piece of the last set was lost, it would become harder for her sister to communicate, which was obviously frustrating for her sister. So the applicant actually learned how to code so that she can create an app for her sister to use rather than having to keep track dozens of physical letters and words. This particular essay was both exceptionally well written, an impressive and noteworthy achievement for the applicant, but the second part of that is genuinely optional. Covered in sweat and dirt, Jackson laced his fingers together and nodded at Dylan to step up. You first, he said, and my jaw dropped to the ground. This third example is the easiest trick to use for a hook, and an example of in media res, which in Latin means in the middle of things. When you're writing your story in the traditional order, and then you simply take a sentence or two from that climax of your story and put it up front. You start in the middle to pull the reader in, and then you go back and set the scene and build up to the climactic moment in the story. I know that these topics may sound confusing at first, but I'm just trying to get the point across that these are ways that you pull a reader into your college essay. It doesn't need to be a complex problem. It doesn't need to be a life-changing solution. You're just trying to find ways to make your essay more engaging for the reader. Now, part of this experience is general writing for creative writers like yourself. Now, a few pieces of advice when going through this writing process. Freestyle drafting is the best way to start. Grammar, word counts, and structure can wait until later. My biggest piece of advice is write down your ideas on a piece of loose leaf paper or even on your laptop. There's no shortage of ways that you could brainstorm really great essay topics. When you're going through this brainwriting or this brainstorming process, no rigid structure needs to be followed. This is why it's so much different than a traditional essay writing process. When you're writing an essay in English class, for example, it's typically graded and there's typical requirements you need to fulfill. Your college essay is completely different. Paragraphs do not need to be of similar lengths. Topic and transition sentences are not strictly necessary. So you have a lot more freedom in this writing process. And lastly, conclusions can have many formats and purposes. They should not summarize, but they can wrap up. The final paragraph should add something new that we didn't know about the essay writing process. So once again, when you're going through this, keep in mind, there's not these specific requirements that you need to fulfill. You have a limited amount of time to share your personal story, and there's not a perfect way to do that. Now, when you've gotten to the point of finishing your college essay and working on those finishing touches, there's a few things that you should be focusing on. After you write your college essay, you're going to want to have someone peer review it. Ideally, these are people that you know well and are comfortable with. They can be parents, teachers, siblings, friends. They should read over your essay with the earliest versions of your college essay, as well as the final version of your essay. This gives you a unique perspective. When you're writing your college essay, you're writing your own personal story. You may not be aware of areas to improve. So get that second set of eyes. Maybe they'll bring your attention to something that you weren't thinking about. Or maybe you're talking to an English teacher who will help you find a way to make that last sentence more compelling or that hook more compelling. There are so many ways. You guys have so many really great ideas that you're going through as you're writing your essay. It's always a really great idea to have multiple people look at your college essay before submitting it. Now, what are some of the things that you should look for as you are reviewing your own college essay? In early drafts, it's really important to focus on the content and tone. Does the voice of this essay sound like yours? This also brings up a really great point when talking about ChatGPT, for example. For those of you who are on this call, write this down, memorize it. Do not use ChatGPT to write your college essay. Admissions counselors like myself know what a high school student's voice sounds like. When you're writing that essay, you want to make sure it's authentic to who you are and authentic to your life experience. So make sure you're telling your story. Make sure ChatGPT isn't telling that story for you. Is the story being told specific? And is it unique to you? Could anyone have written the essay, or is it distinctly yours? Everyone on this call lives a different story every single day of their life. Yes, we go through similar life experiences. We take the bus to school. We spend time with our families. We play sports. But the way we view these very common things can be extremely unique from student to student. That's why I always reiterate, you don't need to write an essay about a jet-setting lifestyle or being inventing the first lithium-ion battery. But the way you view very normal everyday things can be unique. My biggest example of this, especially for anyone that's from New York City on this call, is the way that you commute to school. The way that you commute to school, while it's something that everyone goes through, maybe you view it a little bit differently. Maybe it's taught you time management, right? Maybe you live in Brooklyn, but you commute to school in the Bronx, for example. Maybe it taught you perseverance, for example. Or maybe it taught you how to interact with different people when you're on a packed subway, right? This is a very normal life experience that everyone goes through, but you may view it in a very different way. When someone else reads your college essay, what are their biggest takeaways? Are they what you intended? So here's a situation where you write your college essay, you have another person review your college essay. You want to hear what they have to say about it. When they're providing that response to you, does that fill the objective of what you were trying to accomplish? To go back a few slides, when you're going through some of those different essay ideas, maybe the purpose of your essay was to talk about your motivations for higher education. Well, after your friend or teacher reads your college essay, they should be reiterating your passions for going to college, for example. So once again, make sure you have a clear purpose in mind. And after you have your friend or teacher read that college essay, make sure they're sharing with you your intended purpose. And if they don't, that's completely okay. That'll allow you to go through the editing process and maybe add some ideas that will enhance the story that you're trying to tell. In the final draft of your college essay, focus on grammar and structure. Check for obvious typos and misspelled words. Look for run-on sentences or things that don't flow well. And cut out unnecessary words or sentences, even if you're already within the word limit. The typical word limit for a college essay is around 500 words. It's completely okay to cut unnecessary words. You want to be direct, you want to be precise, and you want to get your message across. When talking about the overall essay structure, make sure your essay is broken up into at least three smaller paragraphs. A beginning, middle, and an end, right? You want to introduce what you're talking about, you want to provide specific examples, and then you want to surmise what you were talking about, or talk about the purpose of your essay. This makes it much more coherent for an admissions counselor when reading your college essay. Now, if you aren't fortunate enough to have someone else to read your college essay, you do have a few options. You can run your essay through a free editing software like Grammarly.com. That'll point out any spelling mistakes or grammatical errors. Now, remember, even though technology can be great, robots can be wrong. A person should always proofread your final essay. If it's you, you can improve your self-editing skills by, first off, reading line by line using a bookmark, or even reading in the dark with a flashlight. That really has you hyper-focus on your different essay writing topics. Now, the last slide that I want to present are a few final thoughts. My biggest piece of advice: take a breath and then take another one. Your essay is way more likely to help you than hurt you in the admissions process. Relax, be creative, and most importantly, have fun with it. This is your opportunity to share with an admissions counselor your story. It's your opportunity to talk about something that you're passionate about, things that motivate you, while you're pursuing higher education. Don't think of this as an assignment that you need to accomplish. Think of this as an opportunity for you to share a story with someone that wants to get to know you. At Bingington, we get a wide variety of applications. We want to hear your stories. If you're passionate about telling your story, the admissions counselor, more likely than not, will find it compelling. Okay. I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I believe there's some questions in the chat, which I'm happy to answer. Let's see here. I'll should I go to the Q&A or the chat section first?
Q&A, please.
Okay. Okay, looks like those are questions that Felix and Chi posted. Okay, let's see. Okay, Zoe, are there topics that you personally liked or have heard of other people liked? If the college essay is good, does this SAT score impact admissions as much? Does Binghamton review extracurriculars in admissions? So you have quite a few questions here. Let's sort of tackle all of them. Are there topics that you personally liked or have heard other people like? There's a ton of topics. Now, I want to provide a specific example because I mentioned it in this presentation. A lot of students choose to write their essays or chose to write their essays specifically around 2020 about COVID. And COVID is something, once again, that a lot of students went through. They went through quarantine, they were taking classes through Zoom, and it wasn't exactly unique. Now, I read an essay how a student reflected on the time that they went through COVID. They didn't necessarily, or it brought to their attention that they weren't involved in a lot outside of their school experience and how this experience motivated them to get a part-time job because this person wanted to work on their social skills and interact with different people. So this student took a very common issue that everyone went through in the world, but she personalized it. She talked about her strengths, her opportunities of growth while going through this experience. Now, the second part of your question, the college essay is good. Does the SAT score impact admissions as much? So good is a relative term, okay? If you write a really great college essay, that's great. Now, if you get a really high SAT score or ACT score, you should be submitting that as well. Binghamton is test optional, so you're not required to submit your standardized test score. Now, if you do not do well in school, for example, if you have a low GPA, a great college essay doesn't make up for that. Okay, I also want to reiterate and be honest and transparent with that as well. Typically, students that do well, the way that they can enhance their application is by writing an equally effective college essay. And I think there's another great or another general admissions question. In Binghamton University, does extracurriculars really matter in admissions? In my school, most clubs don't really do anything since they are student run. Well, extracurriculars certainly do matter. We're absolutely looking at them, but there's not a certain number of extracurriculars we're looking for. If they're student run, we want to see that you're part of these extracurricular clubs. So maybe you held a leadership role in one of your student clubs or activities on campus. We're really looking for impact, just like the college essay. We're looking for how you're going to serve our campus community. Extracurriculars are a great way to start talking about how you've already impacted your campus community. What are some examples of hooks that don't sound as good? That's a really great question. I think college essay hooks that don't sound as good is if you just start generally diving right into the bulk of your essay. You need to introduce the topic. You need to talk about why it's important to you, why you're motivated about it. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily good or bad hooks, but the important thing that you should be thinking about as a student is how am I going to grab the attention of the person reading my essay? Okay, some of these questions were covered in the application, so I'm going to look for ones that are a little bit more unique, I would say. Is writing the college essay about a school club equivalent to writing about sports? Great question. That's questions from Janet. I think you guys need to try to separate these different things. I think each topic is unique. If your school club is something that you're passionate about and it talks about a story that motivates you, then I think it's absolutely fine to talk about. Now, students do write essays about sports. Where they go wrong is they write an entire college essay about the things that they've accomplished. And I could look at your extracurricular section to get a better understanding of your high school stats on the basketball court. If you write about what you're passionate about and why you're passionate about it, then that could be a really effective college essay. So if you're really passionate about a school club, it's brought in light to things that you're passionate about and motivated by, then I welcome you to write about a college essay. But I'm not necessarily equating that to the same thing as sports, as long as you're talking about something that motivates you. If you have a cause, but you haven't done a lot of things about the cause, is it okay to still write about it? Absolutely. The thing is, what you're going to need to do in your college essay is talk about why you care about that cause, right? And maybe things that you want to do to help improve that cause. That's my biggest piece of advice. Dickinson asked, what do you personally look for in a student? Well, in addition to your college essay, we also look at your academics. We look at your GPA. We look at your academic rigor, meaning are you taking rigorous course loads, stressful or high level classes like AP classes, college level courses. As I mentioned, we read your college essay. We look at your letters of recommendation to see what your teachers or counselors have to say about you. And then we review your extracurriculars as well. Last question I have is, does going SAT optional hurt your application? It entirely depends. Binghamton's average ACT score is between a 29 to 33. An average SAT score is between a 1300 to 1450. If you fall within those ranges, it's probably going to amplify or have a positive effect on your application. If you score lower than those ACT or SAT ranges, it's probably not going to help your application. Therefore, you probably should not submit it. Any other questions?
Okay, we have one raised hand.
Sure.
Richard, can you unmute yourself?
Felix, the host, might have to do it.
He's talking permitted. I already gave him permission. He just has to mute himself.
I think he raised his hand by mistake. He chatting.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions? You can raise your hand. We'll give you the permission to talk.
I see another question in the Q&A. How important is the counselor letter? Counselor does not know me. It's hard to have a relationship with my counselor. So we require a letter from either a counselor or your teacher. So if you don't have a relationship with your counselor, I recommend reaching out to a teacher that you have a good relationship with. You guys are in school 5 days a week. Hopefully at this point you have a relationship with one of your teachers that can talk about your strengths and your contributions to your class community.
One other question was asked before is regarding the slide presentation. We have this recording and we'll be putting into a YouTube video and will be shared with everyone and the public. That will hopefully we can get it done within the week or so and will be shared. Any
I
other?
believe all these high school seniors, no questions.
And guys, I'm the one that reads your college essay, so I'm the best person to ask. I think I see a few questions. Are
Would you-
sports coaches good for rec letters? Can my extracurricular instructor make a letter of recommendation for me? Now they can, but we would prefer to see a letter of recommendation from someone in your school community, either a counselor or a teacher. Your sports coaches or an extracurricular instructor, those could be used as supplemental letters of recommendation, but for the application process, we prefer a letter from a counselor or a teacher.
Can you take a question or two about Binghamton, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I have question about Binghamton SUNY, please.
Zoe has a question, is early admissions good or does it not make an impact? So Binghamton has early action. Our early action deadline just passed on November 1st. If you missed our early action deadline for any seniors on the call, that's completely okay. There's no competitive advantage between applying early action or regular decision. You're just going to find out your decision a little bit later on in the admissions process. Dickinson asked, what's the acceptance of Binghamton? I think he means acceptance rate. The acceptance rate is around 40%. Our average GPA for admitted students is typically between a 3.7 to 3.9 or between a 93 to 98 on a 100-point GPA scale. Are our junior teachers recommended the most for letters of recommendation? That's a great question. It certainly can be because when you apply to college, it's typically the very beginning of your senior year. So your junior teachers may be able to speak most strongly about your academic background and your academic performance. So maybe you have that teacher again for your senior year. But regardless, whether they were your teacher junior year or your sophomore year or your freshman year, you want to make sure it's someone that can speak to your strengths as a student.
Can you tell us about maybe a tour of how Binghamton does for the high school kids?
Say that again?
A tour of Binghamton, of your Binghamton.
Yeah, we have tours all throughout the school year. I could post a link if you guys want to sign up for a campus tour. You can do that on your own. We have campus tours all throughout the school year. I can actually provide a link. And if you guys want to sign up for a campus tour, you absolutely can. But let me just provide that information here. Do, 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 do. See. I don't know. Is there a chat section here? Yes, there is. I'm putting it in the chat section. This is a link to our sign up page if you want. Oh, looks like I didn't send it to everyone. Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if I'm able to send it to everyone.
Okay, send it to Felix, and he'll take care of it to everybody.
Great.
He has that.
Perfect. And I'll also put my contact information. If anyone has any questions about the essay writing process or Binghamton in general. Oh, I also said send it to you, Felix. You could feel free to pass it along to your students.
The question about interviews.
We do not offer interviews as part of the application review process. So you don't need to worry about interviews with Binghamton. If you're interested in Binghamton, I definitely recommend going on a campus tour.
The one thing I'm going to talk about as being a parent of a high school kid, my daughter, my middle one, went to Stuyvesant, and it was very surprising that more than 20% of the Stuyvesant kids went to Binghamton during her time. That was very surprising. It shows how strong the school is.
Yeah, so we're the #1 public university in New York. We're a public Ivy League school. That means our students are getting an Ivy League level education, but they're getting it at a public school tuition price. So we have some of the brightest students in all of not only New York State, but really the entire country, which is why we get over 53,000 applications every single year, which is why it's so important for you to write a compelling college essay. Does the beginning of senior year get seen as part of your transcript? So when you submit your application, you typically don't have your senior year grades yet, but we look at the classes that you're taking. I mentioned this before, but we don't just look at your GPA, we also look at your academic rigor. So we can see if you're still taking AP courses or college level courses, which we certainly take into consideration. Do you track demonstrated interest? So we don't. Um, I mentioned this before. We get over 53,000 applications every single year, so it's difficult to use that as a metric for admissions. However, if you're passionate about Binghamton, you should be visiting campus. You should be attending college fairs. You should be attending high school visits because sometimes Binghamton will visit your high school. You should be expressing your interest no matter what, even if it's not an essential part of the admissions review process.
I'm going to ask a question. Can you talk
Sure.
about does Binghamton have any scholarship for kids or financial aid for kids who
Yes.
cannot make it?
So we're mostly need-based aid. What that means is we look at your FAFSA or your financial aid documents to determine what type of need-based aid you're eligible for. About 70% of our students qualify for need-based aid when they fill out the FAFSA. We also do review our students for merit-based aid based on your GPA. But for in-state students, which is I'm assuming is most of the people on this call, merit scholarship is typically a little bit lower just because students are paying a lot less in tuition. Zoe asked, does it look better to be in a club for all 4 years or go to multiple clubs for only a short period of time? Does the clubs in the school you join matter? So the specific clubs you join do not matter. It's the impact that you're having in those clubs. So if you're passionate about something, if you've been in a club for 4 years and you've had a leadership role, you've made impact, you've caused changes, positive changes, that's something that we're taking into consideration. It's much more about quality as opposed to quantity. We're not counting how many extracurriculars you are. We're looking to see what impact you've had in each of your extracurricular activities. In general, why would students pick Binghamton rather than other public colleges? Well, there's a wide variety of reasons. We are the #1 public university, and we are a public Ivy League school. So you're getting an Ivy League level education, the type of academics you're getting, the type of internship opportunities, the type of professors you're interacting with every single day, but you're getting it at a public school tuition price. Our 4-year graduation rate is 74%. Our job placement rate is 83%. Students that graduate from Binghamton make $15,000 higher than the national average. So you're not only getting a really amazing academic experience for an affordable tuition price, you're also getting some really incredible opportunities once you graduate from Binghamton. A Binghamton University degree really does go a long way. As someone who couldn't get into AP junior year, senior year, I happen to get into AP, would that AP? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Your AP classes are noticed when you take them your senior year. We understand that some high schools are limited with the number of APs that they offer. That's something that you may want to let us know in your additional information session on your common application.
Going back to APs, what AP scores do you accept?
We typically accept AP scores of 3 and above. It does depend on the class. But generally speaking, we accept scores of 3 and above. And we accept up to 32 AP credits that you could transfer over for college credit at Binghamton. Any other questions? All right, if there
Well,
are no,
I was going to say, well, in that case, thank you, Chi. You want to?
Yes. Thank you so much, Tyra Margolis, Assistant Director of Binghamton University, for this very informative and knowledgeable information. Hopefully, every one of you will be able to take advantage of this information. And I also like to take opportunity to thank all our supporters. We have Councilmember Christopher Marte, District 1, Con Edison, A+, Council of People's Organization, Taishan Duhu Association of America, Changlu USA Headquarters, NYCHA Lower East Side Infield Number 1, My Friend's Place NY, and we have several individuals. Stanley Ng, Felix Lin, he's a high school student and volunteer his time. That's his extracurricular activities. Thank you, Felix. As well as Danny Yip and also Yitan Liu. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening. Have a nice day. Make sure you, if you didn't get a chance to vote, please vote. Thank you. See you
I
at
did
the
it.
next workshop.
Give them 1 minute, Chi. So if they
Okay.
need to take any information from the chat, give them 1 minute.
Okay.